Don't stop.
Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman, the host of this show. And today I have a really great local Boston gay. Well, he's gay, but I've been doing a series of local Boston people that I have met or that I wanted to interview. They're not all gay because I interviewed reporter Matt, who is straight, and he is such a huge ally, though. Reporter Matt is so amazing. Like, I just kind of reflect back. If you don't know who Reporter Matt is, just like look him up on Instagram. I think his handle is Reporter Matt, and he's such an amazing guy. He goes around doing local stories and towns, and he's so friendly. And he just did a show at the Wilbur not long ago, and it like sold out, and everybody loves Reporter Matt because he's just genuinely just a fantastic, nice guy. So I feel very honored and blessed that I got to interview Reporter Matt. And then I'm looking for a new guest, and it takes up so much of my time to find new guests that I actually like. But let me just tell you, I got on some distribution list for like publicists or just people looking to book people on podcast, and I get like 50 to 75 emails a week on people they're pitching people to come on my show. And I go through every single email and I look at it, and I would say out of the 75, maybe 3 or 4 I have an interest in and I book. But yeah, I mean, some of them I just don't know where they're coming from. My biggest success on finding people to come as guests on my show is around TikTok. Because I will go on TikTok and I will see somebody and I'm like, oh, I got to have them. My gut feeling just tells me that is the person for me. I need to have them on. They're interesting. They caught my attention for more than one video, and I'm going into their page and looking at more videos for them, and they're just great. But let me tell you what else I'm doing now. I've made 3 lists of people I would love to have on my show. First is a complete wish list. A-list celebrities that I am probably very far off on this show from getting them. I mean, you never know. But my top choice, I'll just give you how A-list this is Madonna. Madonna is obviously, for all my friends that listen to this show that know me, Madonna is like, I've been loving her since I was in the 5th grade, a little gay in the 5th grade that loved Madonna. And my dream is to interview her. But I want to interview her at her house. Like I do, we set it up in her house in New York. And then afterwards, she's like, oh, you were so fun to interview me. And then she's like, stay for lunch. And we have lunch. And before we know it, it's dinner. She's like, oh, let's just go out to dinner. And then she's like, just stay the weekend. And I stay the weekend at Madonna's house. And we hang out. We're watching movies in bed together. Oh, I don't know. That's my dream, to be Madonna's. I just want to interview her. All the other stuff would just be bonus. And then I have another list that is not D-level celebrities, but celebrities that are maybe not in the spotlight as much anymore, or not doing big blockbuster movies, or just people that I would just like to meet because I like who they are. And I'm not going to give any names because I don't want any celebrities to think that they're a D-list when they think maybe they're an A or B-list celebrity. But I have a whole C/D list celebrities that I would love to get. And then my third list is a list of people that aren't celebrities. They're just people I've seen on other podcasts or I've read about online, or for a number of reasons I can know who they are. And listen to this. I got a response from a couple of them. One is a major, major person. He's not pop culture. I'm not going to say his name because nothing is definite yet, but he is 75% of people listening to this podcast would know who this person is. He is really, really known. Again, not pop culture, not a movie star, super unique. Nobody is like him in the whole world. He's one of a kind. And I did a whole official proposal for his team. I sent it off this weekend. We'll see what happens. But God, if I got him, I would be so, so thrilled. He is so, so amazing and interesting. So we'll see what happens. And then I got a couple of other people that actually responded. One said yes, and she is booked in May. I'm not going to tell you who that is either. And then I have a few other ones that I've sent proposals to, and I'm just waiting to hear back. So it's a waiting game. Sometimes you hear back in a few days, and other times you hear back months later. But I just got somebody today that actually wrote me back this morning saying, we'd love to have this person on your show, but he is booked for a full year. So check back in a year. And I said, okay, making a note, checking back in a year. But that's what I am doing. I'm looking for guests. I am enjoying not having a corporate job. It's really, really, really fantastic and nice because I can dedicate all of my time to this podcast. And I don't know how I worked a full-time job and did 2 full-time podcasts. I mean, I know how I did it. I worked every weekend and every night after work doing it. But I'm also doing a lot of different things now where I'm trying to improve this podcast. I'm looking for better guests. I have a very, very long to-do list. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. Let me tell you about my guest today, though, because he's pretty fantastic. He is part of a nonprofit organization here in Boston called BAGLY. BAGLY is they've helped tens of thousands of LGBTQ youth come up. They help them make their lives happy. They come up with different programs and services for the LGBTQ youth. An amazing organization. I heard about them before I even heard about my guest. His name is Kurtlan. And before I heard about him, and he does really good work. And I was just very, very happy that I got to interview him and talk about his work and talk about who he is. So he's really fantastic. So enjoy my interview with Kurtlan and go to his website. It's BAGLY, BAGLY.org, and check them out. And it also will be, the URL will be in the description of this podcast or video, however you're consuming this. So thanks so much for listening and enjoy Kurtlan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me in the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. Today, I am continuing my series of meeting with local residents of the Boston area. And today, my guest is Kurtlan, and he works for a amazing organization called BAGLY, which stands for Boston Alliance of LGBTQ plus Youth. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Zach. Pleasure to be here.
So tell me a little bit about who you are. I understand that you are a native New Yorker, right? And you have been in the Boston area for how long? 17, 18 years?
Yeah, I guess since like 2008, I think.
Okay.
So whatever that math is. Yeah, almost 18 years, yeah.
I was living in New York also. And then, my story is that I've moved 18 places in 27 years that I've been with my husband.
Oh, that's a lot.
And we're not in the military, believe it or not. Like
that was my first question.
No, we're not. It was my jobs and stuff that made us move.
I was going to say, are you just like Geminis? Maybe you just have to hop from place. I mean, I'm a Gemini. That's the only sign I know.
No, well, I'm an Aries. He's a Capricorn, so I don't know. So we ended up I got a job in Switzerland, my company. And I moved to Switzerland, Basel, Switzerland, from Manhattan. Did not love it at all. Couldn't wait to get out. In fact, I went through this major depression because it was like moving from 8 million people living in Hell's Kitchen to, living in a village of 350,000 people. And the Swiss, aren't always like so loud and stuff like Americans or New Yorkers are. So it was a struggle. But we lived there a year, and my husband absolutely loved it. He loved the hiking. He loved the gym there. He loved everything about it. He loved the people. He loved the quiet. He grew up in New York as well. And this was just such a shock and change to him. And when we came back, and finally, I said, we're moving back to the U.S. We're moving back to New York. I can't do this anymore. We moved back, and we switched. He had no desire to be in New York. He went through his depression, and I was like going out 6 nights a week to dinner with friends and just having the best time because I was so happy to be back. And after about a year and a half, he's like, I moved back to the United States, but I cannot be in New York anymore. I said, okay. And so I found a job in Boston and moved to Boston. And we actually lived in Natick and bought a house there. Then we moved again for a year and a half to Dallas for another job I took. Didn't love Dallas. Come back, not right in the center of Boston, but we're close enough.
I can empathize with some of that. I haven't lived overseas in a long time, and since I was a student. But when I moved up to Massachusetts, it was a result of the Great Recession.
Okay.
My partner at the time and I, we were young. I think I was 25, he was 23, and we both lost our jobs within weeks of one another. I was in nonprofit work still, and that was hit really hard after the Bernie Madoff disaster. I'm blanking on what their job was at the time, but they lost it. And eventually an opportunity came up for them to work in Cambridge, and they asked if I would move with them. And I said, I'll move with you, but I won't move to Boston proper. I didn't want to compare living in New York City to living in Boston. I thought that it would be an opportunity to experience a different kind of environment that didn't feel transitory. Whenever I lived overseas previously, it was as a student. And so there was a relatively finite end to it.
Yeah.
And in a rare moment, because this person was always, I'm gonna say agreeable rather than passive, but
okay,
maybe somewhere in between. They got really frustrated with me, and they kind of, said, well, I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but where the fuck do you want to live?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
And then, of course, I had to. I was like, "We'll move to Salem. We'll become witches. I don't care." Like, and we looked at Salem on a map, and we're like, "Oh, there's public transport. Oh, there's a cute downtown." And so,
it's on the water.
And it's on the water, and there are things to do, and it is easy enough to get into Boston when we want to do that and for work. So that's how we ended up on the North Shore. Then a couple of years later, I found the house that I am still in. In Beverly, and I've lived in Beverly now coming up on 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when we're looking to move to the North Shore area, and so Beverly's great, but I think could be too great now. I think it could be too. I think we missed our opportunity to buy something that we want that's affordable anymore, because I think it's past the up and coming now.
Definitely affordability is not the key word.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate to get in. I think we bought this house the month before home prices started to rise again after the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So the economy had stabilized, but things hadn't become robust again. So I try not to tell too many people what I paid for this house, because I feel like at this point it's just insulting. But it is the only way I'm able to live here. That and refinancing at the right time during the pandemic.
Well, we have a cousin that lives in Manhattan, and she has an amazing apartment on the Upper East Side.
Yeah.
And she bought it in the 70s for $29,000.
Oh, I'm gonna be sick.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no telling what it's worth now, but it's multiple bedrooms.
Oh my God.
It's, $29,000. I'm like, if I could just go back in time and do that, then,
Yeah. My mom owned an apartment in Riverside, so not Manhattan, but not, Riverside's still pretty great. But my father didn't love that level of independence, so she sold it when they got married, and then they rented, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. Okay, now back to the show. So tell me, how you like Boston compared to New York, because, I like Boston. We're here. We're not moving. I don't want to live in New York again at this point myself. I just, I've interviewed several people in the Boston area recently. I don't know if you know the real estate guy that goes around on Instagram. Benjamin
Yes.
Smith with the makeup, and he
Yeah.
wears, so he's a character. Like I did an interview with him, and he's great. And one of the things that we were talking about is like how the gays in Boston are not friendly. And the clip that I put up on Instagram got like 130,000 views. And
Yeah.
the comments are still coming in today. And I'm kind of like, okay, how long is it going to, are people going to keep commenting on this story? But I mean, compared to New York, like I mean, I've said this a million times on my podcast that I think people in New York are so much more friendlier than people in Boston. Do you think as well? And what is your thought about the gay community in Boston compared to New York?
I'm going to tread carefully here, Zach. No, not carefully. I do think well, firstly, I want to say I don't actually think it's a queer versus, like, I don't think it's a queer community, queer population thing. I think Massachusetts, and maybe Boston in particular, is a harder, more closed system. Where I mean, I belonged to a UU congregation where they still kind of took pride as to whether or not your ancestors were, on the Mayflower.
Oh,
and I think that the ancestry, the genealogy, I'm blanking on the word I'm really looking for, still plays a really important role in identity development in New England and Massachusetts, and then very much in Boston. And so if you're an outsider, it is way more apparent. And I think it just takes a lot of time to be let in.
Yeah.
Do you think because of the transitory nature of New York and its, position as a melting pot, and its position, from not just when it comes to, recently immigrated populations, but also, gay kids escaping rural landscapes and suburban gay kids, escaping that regimented life.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense in New York where it's like, it's not my business, but I don't want you to die,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you live. And maybe that's it. But I'll probably do it with a smile, quickly, but with a smile. I don't think that atmosphere exists in Boston to the same degree. However, I do think there's a stalwartness, there is a consistency, and perhaps a loyalty, that exists in especially the queer community, queer and trans communities in Boston, where solidarity is taken very seriously. With community building, once you get to that point, particularly satisfying. But yeah, it's when it comes up to like going to a bar and meeting people, woof.
No, it's just like, I've gone out with friends, and we went to the trophy room one night, and we walked in there, and it was me and two friends, and I'm like, oh, I think one was visiting me from New York, and the other one lived here. And I'm like, oh, let's go in, and like, we're gonna have a good time. And my thing in New York is I'd go in, I'm like, we'd go into a bar in Hell's Kitchen, and I'm like, we'd ask some guy that we thought was cute or fun, you want to do a shot with us? Yeah, let's do it. And we would like leave with their number, their phone number, their Instagram. We were hanging out with them for like the next, year or whatever. We were like best friends with them. Here, I went in and I'm like, do you want to do a shot with us? To this guy we thought was cute, and he was alone. He goes, why? What do you want?
Yeah. Well, right. There's a suspicion. It's like, where is this friendliness coming from? I'm
like, no, we thought you looked fun, or you were cute, or whatever we told him at the time. And I'm like, I'm not going to roofie the bartender's going to make your drink. I'm not pulling a shot out of my pocket to give you or anything.
It's not a net. Yeah. Which is annoying.
So I don't know. I just think that the gays here are so cliquey, and they just like, they don't want to let anybody new in, or unless you go through some secret initiation, I think, which I don't know about yet.
Well, I also think that I may have been insulated from some of that because of the nature of, the work I've been doing for the last 14 and a half years. It kind of opens doors for me differently, but not socially, and that's been a tension I've really felt. It's hard for me to go out anywhere and feel like I'm not working. Yeah. I'm not saying I've always been on my best behavior, but, it's always in the back of my mind, like, if I get sloppy tonight, how could that come back to me?
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you're talking about. And I wonder, would you buy me a shot if we went to the trophy room together or somewhere
I
else.
definitely would buy you a shot. I'd buy you a couple of shots.
Perfect.
So yes,
I would accept.
Okay, cool.
And probably return the favor.
Okay, yeah, that's what we need more of in Boston. So all the gay Bostons listening to this episode, like, come on, like, be
Buy
more
us
friendly.
shots.
Buy us shots, or we'll buy you shots.
We'll
Like,
buy
come
you
on.
shots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about BAGLY because I think it's amazing, the organization that you're doing. So tell the people listening what BAGLY is all about and how you got involved.
So BAGLY is the Boston Alliance of LGBTQ plus youth. And, frankly, the organization is so old, the acronym, kind of just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
We have obviously expanded the alphabet to be more inclusive. And BAGLY is a statewide organization. We support queer and trans youth throughout Massachusetts. But at essence, the mission hasn't changed as the organization has grown. We help young people take care of themselves and their friends, take agency in their lives, and take action in their communities through youth leadership development, health and wellness, and stabilization and success services. So it's been a really rewarding tenure there. The work isn't done, as you probably are well aware.
Yeah.
I referenced it earlier. I take the opportunity I have each day, the privilege I have each day to work in what I do very seriously, which is what gives me some hesitation about letting loose entirely, because who knows where the next benefactor is, or the person who might overhear something that could really make a big difference in the lives of the queer and trans young people that BAGLY serves.
Yeah. What do you think that are some queer people are facing, the young queer people are facing right now that maybe people don't really, understand? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of news coverage about all the anti-trans laws and legislations that are trying to be, I feel like we have taken 20 steps back in the last 14 months, since I try not to get political in this show, but since the Trump administration came on, like we've been pushed back. And I just like look back at, Obama and even the Biden administration, where I felt, wow, like this is great. And I just did an interview last week with a guy that's from Australia, and he's the basketball player that actually came out as gay, and I interviewed him. And I said, "Oh, you should come to America." He goes, "Oh, not right now. I won't."
Yeah.
It's not great in this country, but it's not like unsafe. I mean, I wouldn't go to Minneapolis or anything anytime soon, but I think people see it like as really unsafe here. And there's a person that I work with who lives in Switzerland that wants to come over for a meeting, and she's hesitant to come over because she doesn't feel safe coming to America anymore. And it's kind of crazy. That's where we are.
I mean, I think there's a little daylight between our perspectives on that. I don't think that we're particularly safe right now. But there are also, that's incremental. We're not, so it's important, at least for me, it feels important to recognize danger, to name it, but also not, I don't have hair anymore, but I was not tear our hair, rend our clothing. I think we have to approach the challenges and the danger proportional to what they are. And right now, we see the warning signs. There is actual danger in the rhetoric, in the propaganda. Even legislation that doesn't move forward creates a narrative which is deeply damaging to a vulnerable, or a population who's been made vulnerable over decades and millennia of systemic oppression. And of course, when one group is targeted, it's a warning to any marginalized group. So as this administration targets and murders, immigrants, especially immigrants of color, that is a warning to the queer community. That is, and particularly the trans folk, in our broader community, because we are aware there is a hierarchy, and the more vulnerable you are, the more likely it is that any fascist administration is going to focus on you, because there's less likely to be public outcry. And I don't think it's any mistake. It's almost boringly predictable that this momentum to fight back against this restriction of rights has now come to a head after the, horrendous and tragic executions of Renee Good and Alex
Yeah.
Crick, because it broke that unspoken rule. Wait, you look like me, or you sound like me, or our backgrounds are similar. And I think one of the greatest jobs any of us can embrace is expanding our empathy and our compassion as often as possible to folks who we don't share as much with. I mean, in a sense, I think that's a very New York thing to do.
Yeah.
Because we're inoculated to, or rather we are predispositioned to see difference on a daily basis and hopefully come to appreciate it. So I would say this is a dangerous moment. It's largely in what I'm going to call it an administrative phase.
Yeah.
But it's working. More and more people are not renewing their passports or are hesitant to get gender affirming care, whether
I know. Yeah, it's horrible.
Therapy or documentation or HRT or surgery. There are so many ways that all of us, non-binary, trans, and cisgender, affirm our gender identity and gender expressions. And the folks who are more fluid in that are certainly forced to make choices right now between a more certain safety and a much more exposed and vulnerable position. And that is dangerous.
Yeah. This is a strange story that I'll tell you, but there was a gay kid. I don't even know how old he was. Maybe he was 15 or 16. I don't even remember where he lived. It was somewhere in the Midwest, I think. And he was on TikTok. He told his family he was gay. They told him to leave immediately. His father's like, "You're out." He posted a story on TikTok. I don't know why I reached out. I don't know why I reached out. I mean, I felt bad. I know why I reached out, but
yeah.
And I just said, "Hey, do you have food or a place to stay?" He's like, I'm living. He must have been 16 because he had a car. He goes, "I'm living in my car and I don't have any money for food. And I have a dog and my dog has a little food, but that's it." So I would Venmo him money, just to help him or whatever. I mean, how common is that you're seeing today? Is that happening more and more often?
Yes. It is happening both in response to that kind of family rejection, but also it's happening preemptively because, a lot of us who grow up queer and grow up trans, we develop a real hypervigilance. We're able to read the room real quick because our safety does depend on it. And so, most young people aren't surprised when they come out and it's not received with love and affirmation. Because Massachusetts has a legal infrastructure that is far more stable and supportive of queer and trans identities, we are seeing more and more young people come to Massachusetts. And let's say you're coming from Florida, let's say you're coming from Texas, you don't know what winter is.
Yeah, no, they don't know.
You're not prepared for the cost of living in Massachusetts. And so you'll notice I talk a lot about BAGLY. It's very special to me that I have the privilege to do this every day. But one of the things I felt particularly proud of is kind of helping lead the charge and breaking down sort of these old norms around how nonprofits are allowed to help. And at the height of the pandemic, we just kind of said, screw it. We're going to start a radical direct aid initiative. People all over are struggling. Everyone is worried about their financial health and their economic stability. Our mission is to support queer and trans youth. We're not looking to save the entire world. We'd love to.
Yeah.
But we know our lane and we know what we're good at. And so it was very specifically for queer and trans young people who were either supporting themselves or their chosen family or, their bio families. And to date, we've kept that initiative running, and we disperse $70,000 or more every year to young people, particularly those facing housing insecurity, which is so often the result of family rejection.
Yeah.
So that was a long answer.
No, that's amazing. I mean, that's what I was hoping you would. I was hoping for that type of answer. I mean, I think if this kid would have lived near me, I probably would have I have 2 extra bedrooms, come and stay, or I probably would have adopted him or something. I don't know. I felt horrible for him, and and I don't know. I don't know. His TikTok is gone, so I don't know where he ended up. But I think about him from time to time, like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably 20 years old or something now. So maybe
Yeah.
he ended up getting into college somewhere or something is what I'm hoping. And he has a better life without his family.
Well,
So
we can absolutely take a moment to wish him well. I hope he's
yes.
doing well. Yeah. And if you're listening to this and need support, if you're 20, you can still access BAGLY. You just reach out.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, even me and my husband talked about at one point about, he's like, do you want to do foster care for like a kid that's maybe kicked out of, I'm like, I don't know if you can you can pick a kid that's or not.
Well, if you identify yourself to the foster care system as a home that specifically feels equipped to support young queer and trans people in the foster care system, I believe they actually are looking. I mean, I know this was at least true 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Things could have changed. I have a feeling they haven't. It's a lot harder to safely place queer and trans youth in foster homes. And so they actually do, you don't exactly, you don't get to go to a store and pick one out, but but you can identify yourself as specifically an affirming household, and I believe that they work hard to pair young people who will benefit from that.
Oh, that's amazing. I wish, Well, we talked about surrogacy at one point too, and then decided that wasn't for us because it's so much money. It's $150,000 to even kind of get started, so it's crazy.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. I want to kind of talk about just how you're Jewish and you're queer, and kind of how does that help you inform the way you kind of show up for the youth? Because there's so much anti-Semitism in this world today. My husband's Jewish as well. As we were kind of talking about wanting to buy a house at some point this year, he also has said maybe we need to wait till after midterms elections are over, because I mean, I go back and forth. Is he being too extreme, or is he maybe is he onto something? Because he's like, we don't want to buy a house and we have to leave the country because and I think him, being Jewish and obviously what happened to the Jewish people at one point, he's like, we don't want to end up in a camp because we're gay or because I'm Jewish and gay, and I've got 2 strikes against me, and for some people, so kind of what's your thoughts on how you kind of show up for people?
I mean, I think the intersection of politics, being Jewish and being queer, has been a particularly alienating experience over the last couple of years. I want to say explicitly, I think the actions of the Israeli government absolutely amount to war crimes and have to cease immediately. And so it has been very othering, where I feel in no matter what community I'm trying to connect with, I'm told that one part of my identity is just fucked up.
Yeah.
I have historically, I was raised not particularly strictly religious in a Reform household with a single mother, so we did what we could, but I have found actually since moving to Massachusetts and the Boston area that the Judaism I grew up with looks very different than the Judaism I was familiar with in New York. And
what do you mean? Tell me what you mean by that.
I don't know if it was just the folks I happened to run into, but they seemed far more interested in the law of Judaism and the I met a lot more people who keep kosher, who speak Hebrew far better than I ever did.
Yeah.
And I mean, to some extent, I'll just say take Judaism more seriously, where my connection to Judaism is very, very largely cultural. But I believe that a lot of my perspective on the world has been informed by that culture. The idea of tzedakah, of making the world, of healing the world. Or wait, is that? I might be messing up my Hebrew already. But I feel very connected to the way that Judaism encourages education, curiosity, community as strength. And I think my analysis of all of it was too basic, maybe, for folks that I ended up meeting in the Boston area.
Yeah.
I have felt over the last couple of years that I've been asked to kind of prove myself in ways that I don't think are appropriate. I don't think purity tests should be prerequisite for existence and for validity. And if we're trying to build a world in which everyone can bring their whole selves, then I do think that we've got to be able to take a breath and be able to sit with disagreement and discomfort a little bit better than many parts of our communities do. A lot of people experience disagreement or discomfort as violence, and I don't agree. I think violence is very specific. I see violence I won't say on a daily basis, but I see the results of violence very frequently, given the work that I do and the projects I take on my own time. And just, I want people to believe me that there is a huge difference between violence and discomfort.
Yeah.
And I believe we would all be doing ourselves and the world a great service by getting more comfortable with that, because you see what happens politically, socially, or otherwise when people can coalesce, regardless of some disagreements or discomfort. They win elections, they get things done. And when the communities that I care most about are at odds with one another, we see how things fall apart and how quickly things can fall apart. And it needs to be a constant conversation. We evolve, situations devolve, but I can't, on a personal note, there have been moments of extreme loneliness and feeling effectively silenced because I don't know, when or where my opinion is welcome. I don't care if it's welcome, whether or not it will represent more trouble than it's worth to talk.
Yeah, my husband's I think he's a New York Jewish guy like you are. So it's more cultural. So
maybe we had roast chicken on Friday nights.
Exactly. So I want to ask you a few things that I found out about you. I wanted to find out about your paint. You're a painter, an amateur painter, you say. So let's talk about
amateur.
So I did painting too during right before COVID started. I started painting. I'm not by any means good, but it was just like it felt good to do it. I ended up posting them on my Facebook. My friends ended up saying, "Oh, that's great." They're really not good. Like but I ended up mailing these canvases. One of them was like a huge canvas I mailed to somebody. I ended up mailing 49 canvases over painted canvases to friends over COVID because I was like painting and just giving them away. And then I ended up putting them on Etsy and I sold like 13. I'm like, okay, I don't want to paint anymore. So, I still have a whole art studio and a bunch of paints. I should start doing it because I do love it. It's just, I'm not good. So tell me about your painting.
I'm willing to bet that no one would buy a painting of mine on Etsy. I have forced paintings on friends when the canvases start to pile up and I just need to get rid of them. But for me, it's really just, it is a productive way to let go and play with color and get a little dirty. I for most of my life, there was a sense of like, if I didn't know I was going to be really great at something, maybe just don't bother. I was the kid who would get a callback in high school for the musical, but then not show up to the callback.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, painting and sort of exercises that muscle I ignored for too long, which is just being crappy at something.
Yeah.
and still enjoying it. But I do a lot of like just sort of seascapey, playing with color. I'm actually sitting exactly where I paint because I never bothered to set up a real home office. I work from my couch most days. So, it's like stuff like this. You know, you can't really see it, but I only work in acrylics and it's something I enjoy, but I don't feel like I can speak, all that fluently about.
Yeah. It just, I sometimes like, I got so addicted to it where I would just zone out and forget, like 3 hours would go by. I'm like, oh my God, it's like 11 o'clock at night. And I can't believe that I've been painting for 3 hours. And
it's also my time to just, I feel so nerdy when I do it because I put on like a Spotify playlist of like the best of Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
scores. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's called. I want to say soundscapes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm like, here I am just playing with color and imagining, Sam and Frodo traversing Mordor, and then I look down, I'm like, oh, you were trying to paint Mordor, weren't you?
Yeah.
So it's a time to just be kind of unapologetically silly and myself and nerdy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And what about boxing?
Again, very amateur, but years ago, actually, the first time we had a Trump administration, I reacted like I think many people did, and started to self-medicate with a lot of drinking. And I woke up one day and just decided, well, it feels like you're trying to kill yourself. So either grow up and do it right or stop this behavior. And so
Yeah.
I stopped drinking for about a year and a half. And shockingly started to lose weight.
Okay.
Which had always been a struggle for me. And when I got that initial boost of weight loss and feeling kind of better about myself, I was like, well, let's go to the gym. Let's see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I very quickly figured out I'm not a class person. I'm not a big joiner really.
Yeah.
But also I need a little bit of structure. And I just kind of fell into going to a boxing club in Danvers, where I really got along with the owners and was in a position where I could afford one-on-one lessons, and really just enjoyed the physical and emotional release, whether I was just working against a heavy bag or sparring with, one other person. Mm-hmm. It was like that perfect middle ground of, some connections, some building rapport and learning a skill, but also something I'm able to do by myself. Actually, whether or not I have a heavy bag, you can shadow box or, and of course it has the benefit of being, if you're taking care of yourself, extremely good for conditioning, and it's cardio and it's resistance, and it's, and also, there is a community safety part of it where it's like, if someone messes with me or mine, I have a few moves.
Yeah, good for you. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Okay, now back to the show. I have one more question for you before we end. So again, BAGLY's amazing. So if you were a 15-year-old kid listening to this show right now, what would you kind of want them to know? Or if there is a 15-year-old kid listening to the show, what would you want them to know, I should say?
Yeah. I mean, whether you're 13, 14, 15, 22, I guess I just want to remind you that whether or not you need to show up in person or feeling like you need any particular support, that there is a place like BAGLY for whenever or however you need it. I think one of the really inspiring things about the organization's model is that, yes, we're there to catch people when they feel that they're at their lowest, if they can't afford to live, if they can't afford groceries, keep the lights on. But you don't have to wait for that moment to get involved. You can come and develop your leadership skills. You could come in and do homework. You can come in and just make friends. There's a space right in downtown Boston that is open to you, that is yours. We have a very youth-led, adult-supported model where the two co-chairs of our youth leadership committee are always fully vested members of our board of directors. So we really put the ownership in the hands of the young people that we serve, while hopefully while shepherding the resources needed to run everything as best we can. I would say that there are a lot of adults out there who are pulling for you. I'm going to suggest safely making intergenerational friendships as often as you can.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm noticing, something I had access to, I think, in part because of growing up in New York City, but also the family in which I was born into. I knew particularly gay men from a very early age. And then when I came out, was able to develop really foundational friendships with gay men. And I think we've hit a point in community development where sometimes that's looked askance at. And of course, safety is always paramount, but I would hate to see the value of intergenerational friendships be disregarded.
Yeah.
I would say if you need free therapy, we offer free mental health therapy with
Wow.
LCSWs. I'd say if you need to do laundry, we have laundry facilities at the community center. If you want a meal, if you want a snack, and again, really, if you just want to make friends.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a guy interviewed that his podcast will be coming out in a few weeks. He lives in New York, but he is been working for, I think it's 3.5 years, on a thing called QT Library, which is Queer Trans Library.
Yeah.
Have you heard about? Yeah. So they're looking for a space in Boston. I think they're going to try to. They could have found one like in Boston, and I love it that they're doing this. And it's like, there's no. It's a place that they're not going to have alcohol or anything there, but anybody can come. And the reason why they're not having alcohol is because they want it to be open for kids or adults or whoever. And you can use it as, if you need Wi-Fi or to read a book, I think he's collected like 5,000 books, or that's his goal.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of them. And I follow him on Instagram, and he showed where he's storing them all right now.
Right.
But it's like between BAGLY and that, I mean, it's just like Boston is going to be such an amazing place, I think, for that queer, trans, youth, or even, adults that are looking to be found. So.
Oh, I agree. And I also want to shout out the LGBTQ plus history project, who, I feel like that's one of the missing pieces for a lot of folks. They feel unmoored by like not having sort of a cultural heritage. And of course, we know that that's not true. Queer and trans people have been around since forever. And there is a queer and trans cultural heritage. And this is one of the very humbling things about doing the work that I do is how often I get to feel old. But it also means that I get to like keep certain kinds of camp alive. Like I will absolutely be screening Mommy Dearest and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Grey Gardens at the community center. I don't care if no one shows up. I'm going to watch them and make the jokes. Yeah. But I will say, and I do it to myself. So Tori Amos was very important to me when I was coming out, and subsequently. I don't know if you're a Tori Amos fan, but
she was my generation. Yes.
There we are.
I mean, I know I look like I'm 25, but I'm not.
You actually do. You do look 25.
I wish I did. So.
But within the first few weeks of starting at BAGLY, you're looking for ways to connect with these young people because it's a little intimidating. They're also cool, and I've never, I don't think, ever been described as cool. So I was like, okay, well, music. I was like, so how about Tori Amos, everyone? Like, and I just blank stares.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, lesson learned. We're gonna learn what they like and see what parts I can jive with. But I don't remember how I got on this. So feel free to redirect my tangent.
Oh no, I think you were just we were just talking about kind of like what you're doing at, having them come in about, you were talking about Mommy Dearest and showing the movie and then listening to music and stuff. And so, and I think that people need that older generation to kind of help guide them. And I wish I would have had that also when I was coming out or trying to discover who I was and stuff. So, because I didn't have that either.
Yeah, I think that shared sense of history is undervalued, and I mean it's more about presenting options, like and did you know that 50 years ago when we were fighting for this set of rights, like this was the album, this was the standard, why am I thinking of Les Miserables? Like who waves the banner? Anyway, musicals, please get into musicals. Like it's rooted in resistance. And anyway, I just I get excited about sharing things that I like, and thankfully also get excited about learning what other people like.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you're a great guest, and I love what you're doing with BAGLY. So it's if anybody is interested in learning more or participating, it's bagly.org, BAGLY.org. And I'll put the website in the description of this video or podcast, however you're listening to it. And you've been an amazing guest. And so thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad I got to talk to you and learn more about you and learn more about BAGLY. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Zach. I really appreciate the opportunity. I feel like you probably have far more interesting guests. Really?
No, whenever I was asked, do you want to interview this guy? And I looked you up. And so I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He's great. And you're my series of Boston locals that make a difference. So thanks so much for being on.
Oh, thank you.
If you think this episode will resonate with somebody you know, be sure to share it and be sure to follow the podcast if you're not already. And thanks everybody for listening and thanks for being on, Kurtlan.
Of course. My pleasure.